How many times have you opened the chart with the determination to be more disciplined from today, only to place an impulsive trade just a few hours later simply because you could not stand the feeling of staying out? You promise yourself you will wait for the right setup, but when price starts moving fast, your heart begins to beat quicker, your hands feel itchy, your mind whispers, maybe this time is different, and then you enter a trade with no plan, not the right entry, not the right position size, not the right system. After that, you do not just lose money, you also lose trust in yourself. You start thinking, maybe I am not suited for trading, maybe I just lack discipline, maybe I am the weak type of person. But the truth is, you do not lack discipline. You are simply trying to use the wrong method to create it. Most people believe discipline is a personality trait. Some people have it, some people do not. Sounds reasonable, sounds correct, but it is completely wrong biologically. Discipline, as modern society defines it, actually goes against how the human brain is designed to function. And this is not a metaphor. This is neuroscience. Your brain did not evolve to become a disciplined trader, a hard-working gym goer, a consistent student. It evolved for one single purpose: to survive right now. For millions of years, our ancestors lived in environments of scarcity, danger, and uncertainty. No supermarkets, no refrigerators, no savings accounts. If you saw food, eat immediately. If there was a place to rest, rest immediately. If you did not need to spend energy, do not spend it. The brain was gradually programmed to seek quick rewards, avoid energy expenditure, prioritize immediate comfort, because individuals who did that had a higher chance of survival. The problem is that software is still running inside you, but the world has completely changed. Trading requires you to wait, restrain yourself, not act when you really want to act, accept missing out, prioritize long-term outcomes over short-term emotions, which means you are asking your brain to do what it hates the most. Wait a long time for rewards. Endure discomfort right now. Refuse instant dopamine. To your primitive brain, that sounds like slow self-destruction. When you try to force yourself to be disciplined, what you are actually doing is this: using fragile willpower to fight against millions of years of evolution, like using bare hands to block a waterfall. At first, you might hold on, 1 day, 2 days, a week. Then you get tired, and when you get tired, the brain returns to its default mode, energy-saving mode, quick reward-seeking mode, the take-a-trade-to-scratch-the-itch mode. So, you break discipline, not because you are weak, but because the system inside you is far stronger than your willpower. This is exactly why many intelligent traders understand the system, understand strategy, understand risk management, yet still repeatedly sabotage their own accounts. The problem is not knowledge. The problem is behavioral design. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, has a very important line. Real discipline does not come from force. It comes from design. People who seem very disciplined are not that way because they are stronger than you. They do not have iron willpower. They are not robots. They are lazy too. They get tired too. They have days when they do not want to do anything. The only difference is they do not fight their brain. They design their environment and their systems so that the right behavior becomes the easiest choice. They do not try to force themselves not to overtrade. They make overtrading far more inconvenient than not trading. They do not rely on motivation to stay disciplined. They build structures that make discipline almost automatic. In other words, they do not try to become disciplined people. They build a smart trap, so their brain falls into disciplined behavior without having to fight it every day. And that is exactly what we are going to do on this journey. You will not need to try harder. You will not need to scold yourself. You will not need to wait for motivation. You will learn how to trick your brain so it starts to like trading discipline. First, you need to understand a very hard but extremely liberating truth. Your brain does not hate you. It is just doing its job. When you want to sit still and wait for the right entry but end up clicking early, that is not you sabotaging yourself. That is your brain trying to help you escape the discomfort of waiting. Waiting in trading creates a state that the ancient brain absolutely hates: uncertainty. Not knowing when price will move, not knowing if there is a trade, not knowing if you will miss out. To the primitive brain, uncertainty equals danger. And when it feels danger, it wants you to do something. Anything. Enter early. Move stop loss. Hold a losing trade. Revenge trade. Actions that give you a feeling of control, even if those actions are stupid from a system perspective. So, if you want to become a disciplined trader, you cannot just tell yourself, "From now on, I must be more disciplined." That sentence is useless to the brain. It is too abstract, too long-term. It does not create instant dopamine. You have to do the opposite. Design discipline so that the brain feels it is being rewarded, not punished. This is where we start tricking the brain intelligently. The first principle, turn discipline into something that gives immediate rewards. Trading according to your system often has one big problem. The reward comes very late. You wait for the right setup, enter correctly, manage risk properly, but profit or loss may only be clear hours, days, or even weeks later. To the brain, that is too far away. It cannot feel the value. Meanwhile, random trades give instant rewards. Excitement, the feeling of doing something, dopamine from action. So, if you want the brain to like discipline, you must attach discipline to near rewards. For example, every time you skip a trade that does not fit your system, you mark it on a discipline tracking board. Each mark is a win, a point, a level up. Sounds childish? Your brain likes childish things. It likes scores, progress bars, streaks. You are teaching the brain that. Not overtrading equals reward. Waiting for the right setup equals points. The reward is no longer money. The reward is the feeling of completion immediately after the right behavior. Gradually, the brain starts linking. Discipline, immediate good feeling. That is the first step to hacking it. The second principle, reduce friction for disciplined behavior and increase friction for undisciplined behavior. The brain always chooses the path of least resistance. If placing a trade takes one click, but reviewing your trading plan takes 5 minutes, guess what you will do when emotions run high? So, you must redesign your trading desk. A very simple but extremely effective example. Before each trading session, you write on paper, "Today, I only trade if there is setup, a setup, B, setup C." Then you place that paper right in front of you. Now, every time you want to take a random trade, you must see it. The brain is forced to face reality. This trade is not in the plan. You have increased the psychological friction for impulsive behavior. Next, you can add a technical rule. Every trade must have 3 journal lines filled out before you click enter. Reason for entry, invalidation, point, risk to reward ratio. Just the act of writing these 3 lines is enough to slow down the impulse. You are no longer trading in 3 seconds of emotion. You force the brain to switch from emotional mode to thinking mode. You are placing another lock between emotion and action. Disciplined people are not people without emotions. They are people with many gates between emotion and the mouse click. The third principle, do not try to eliminate bad habits. Replace them with less harmful ones. You cannot just say, "From now on, no more fear of missing out." The brain needs a replacement behavior. For example, when you see price running fast and feel the urge to jump in instead of completely forbidding yourself, you create a new habit. Every time fear of missing out appears, open a higher time frame chart and take a screenshot. That is all. You do not trade. You just observe and save it. You still give the brain an action, but it is a safe action. Gradually, the brain learns. Excitement does not mean you must enter a trade. It means observe and record. You are reprogramming the reflex. The fourth principle, turn discipline into part of your identity, not a task. This is the deepest layer. If you think, "I am trying to become disciplined," the brain will always see discipline as something outside of you, something you must force. But if you start thinking, "I am the type of trader who always waits for the right setup," every small action becomes evidence reinforcing that identity. Every time you do not take a random trade, you are not just staying disciplined. You are casting a vote for your new self. Every time you stop according to plan, you are telling your brain, "This is who we are. We are traders who follow a system." The brain loves identity consistency. Once it accepts, "This is who I am," It will automatically resist behaviors that go against that image. At that point, discipline is no longer forced. It becomes natural. And that is when you have truly tricked your brain, not with strength, not with motivation, but with smart design and small changes repeated until discipline is no longer a battle, but your default state. But there is still a deeper layer where many traders fail, even if they have a system, have a journal, have clear rules. That is, they still unconsciously use trading as a tool to satisfy emotions. And the brain really likes that. You think you enter a trade because you see a setup, but many times you enter because you are bored, you are stressed. You just argued with someone, you feel useless and want to prove something. At that point, trading is no longer a financial decision. It becomes the wrong kind of emotional therapy. Every impulsive trade gives a shot of dopamine, a nervous system activation, a feeling of aliveness. To the brain, that is very attractive. So, if you only fix trading techniques but do not replace the emotional role of trading, you will always be pulled back. To trick the brain into liking discipline, you must cut the link. Strong emotion. Enter trade. And replace it with strong emotion. Safe release behavior. A very practical example. When you feel like entering a trade just because of restlessness, you create a rule. Before entering any trade that is not in the plan, you must stand up from your chair for 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes of walking. Drink water. Breathe. Sounds simple, but you have just done something huge neurologically. You cut the emotion. Immediate action loop. You create a delay. And delay is where discipline is born. The emotional brain is fast. The rational brain is slower by a few seconds. If you do not create a delay, emotion always wins. This is not a moral issue. This is biology. Disciplined people are not stronger. They are just better at creating delays. And now comes a slightly paradoxical truth. You do not need to make discipline interesting. You need to make breaking discipline uncomfortable. The brain learns very quickly from immediate consequences, not long-term consequences. Blowing an account after 3 months? Too far away. The brain is not afraid. Regret 10 minutes after a bad trade? Closer, but still weak. But if every time you break a rule, you have to do something you do not like, the brain starts remembering. For example, every trade outside the system, you must handwrite 1 full page analyzing the mistake. No copying, no typing, handwriting. The brain hates wasting energy pointlessly. It will start linking. Random trade equals effort. Random trade equals inconvenience. Random trade equals fatigue. Meanwhile, system trade equals done. Clear mind. You are reprogramming the reward and punishment system at a micro level within the same day without waiting until the account blows up. Gradually, the brain will choose discipline simply because it is less tiring. And here is the most important transformation step. When you stop trying to become a disciplined trader and start living as a disciplined trader, the difference lies in how you make decisions in very small moments. An undisciplined trader asks, "Can this trade make money?" A disciplined trader asks, "Does this trade fit my system?" One person seeks feelings. One person protects identity. When identity changes, the battle disappears. You no longer fight yourself every day because the right behavior matches the image you believe about yourself. Like a non-smoker who does not have to try not to smoke, because in their head, there is simply the sentence, "I am not a smoker." When you truly believe, "I am a trader who manages risk before profit," "I am someone who only trades when there is a clear edge," "I am someone who can stay out of the market," then every time you do not take a random trade, it is no longer a small victory. It is normal behavior for who you are, and that is when the brain has been completely tricked. It no longer sees discipline as loss. It sees it as a way to maintain internal consistency. And to the brain, identity consistency is more important than short-term dopamine. So, this journey was never about how to force yourself to be stronger. It was about how to design a smarter environment, create smarter delays, attach closer rewards, increase friction for mistakes, and little by little become the type of person for whom discipline is natural. At that point, you no longer have to force yourself not to overtrade. You simply look at those trades and think, "That is not my style." And here you may start to realize something very strange. Discipline in trading does not actually start from the chart. It starts from how you treat yourself in very small moments that no one sees, how you react when you lose a trade, how you react when you miss a good opportunity, how you talk to yourself after a bad trading day. If, after every mistake, you insult yourself, "I am so stupid, I am really useless, I will never get better," you think you are motivating yourself. But to the brain, that is a danger signal. When threatened, the brain does not become more disciplined. It looks for a way to escape pain. And the fastest escape is what? Dopamine, impulsive action, a revenge trade. Self-criticism does not create discipline. It creates emotional pressure. And emotional pressure is fuel for undisciplined decisions. If you truly want to trick your brain into liking discipline, you must do something that sounds counterintuitive. Stop turning discipline into punishment. Discipline is not, "I am not allowed to do what I like." Discipline must become, "I am protecting my future." The difference lies in the feeling. One side is deprivation. The other side is self-respect. When you do not take a random trade, do not think, "I am missing an opportunity." Practice thinking, "I just protected my account. I just acted like a professional trader. I just kept my word to myself." You are teaching the brain that discipline equals safety. Discipline equals control. Discipline equals self-respect. And when discipline is linked to self-respect, it starts to become far more attractive. Now, let us talk about something very practical but extremely powerful: discipline streaks. The brain loves streaks. It hates breaking streaks. You can create a simple board. Every trading day you follow your system. Mark 1x. It does not matter whether that day was profit or loss. What matters is whether you stayed disciplined. The goal is no longer make money every day. The goal is, do not break the discipline streak. Suddenly you are not trading to satisfy emotions. You are trading to protect your streak. And believe me, the feeling of not wanting to break a streak is much stronger than vague motivation, like "I must succeed." You are replacing dopamine from entering trades with dopamine from maintaining a discipline streak. That is how you retrain the brain's reward system. Gradually, what feels satisfying is no longer constant action. It is looking back at a week and seeing, "I traded like a systematic person." And then something very interesting happens. You start to find humor in impulsive trade urges, not because you have no emotions anymore, but because you have seen the game behind it. When price runs and the brain whispers, "Enter now, or you will miss it," another voice appears, "Oh, it is you again," dopamine. The moment you realize emotions are just biological signals, not commands you must obey, is the moment you take back control. You are no longer the one dragged by the market. You are the one observing your own brain. And when you can observe an impulse instead of being controlled by it, you have reached a completely different level of discipline. At that point, discipline is no longer forcing, no longer struggling. It becomes awareness. You clearly see the urge to enter does not equal a real opportunity. Fear of missing out does not equal a quality setup. The urge to recover losses does not equal a smart decision. You begin to trade based on structure, not based on emotion. And that is when discipline is no longer something you try to achieve. It is the natural result of someone who understands how their brain works and designs the game in their favor. You do not beat the market by being stronger. You win by being less stupid in a systematic way. Not perfect every day. Not never making mistakes. But every day you make the right behavior a little easier and the wrong behavior a little harder. Repeat long enough, discipline is no longer effort. It becomes who you are. Then a very special stage will come in your journey. You still feel emotions. Your heart still beats faster when price moves strongly. You still sometimes feel the urge to enter just to scratch the itch. But instead of being swept away, you begin to smile inside and realize, "Oh, this is my survival brain speaking." That moment is the real leap, because from the second you realize you are not your emotions, but the observer of your emotions, you have separated yourself from biological reflexes. And when there is distance, you have choice. Before, the chain of events was, price moves strongly, excitement appears, hand clicks done. Now the chain changes, price moves strongly, excitement appears, you notice it, you breathe, you review your plan, then you decide. You do not suppress emotions. You just no longer let them drive. This is where discipline shifts from force to aware. You no longer have to strain to avoid random trades. You simply see clearly that behavior is unnecessary. Like an adult looking at a child who wants candy before dinner. You do not hate the child. You understand it, but you do not let it decide. The emotional brain in trading is the same. It wants immediate action, immediate reward, immediate feeling of control. But you, the more aware version, understand that the feeling right now can destroy long-term results. And when you truly understand that at an experiential level, not just theoretically, discipline begins to become a new reflex. Not a reflex of fear, not a reflex of force, but a reflex of understanding. You start to see that every time you do not take an impulsive trade, you are not missing an opportunity. You are avoiding a mistake. This shift in perspective is extremely important. Undisciplined traders are afraid of missing winning trades. Disciplined traders are afraid of entering losing ones. One person chases profit, one person protects capital. And in the long run, the one who protects capital is the one who survives long enough to make profit. When you teach the brain to see reward in avoiding mistakes instead of only seeing reward in winning trades, you have changed the entire internal motivation system. Now, let us talk about something very practical but decisive. You must stop measuring yourself by money in the short term. If every day you sit at your desk and the biggest question in your head is how much did I make today, then you are pushing your brain into hunter mode. And in hunter mode, the brain wants constant action. But if your question becomes, did I trade according to my plan? Today then you shift the brain into builder mode. One side hunts opportunities. One side builds skill. Hunting creates action addiction. Building creates discipline. Every day you finish a session and can say, today I followed my process. That is a neurological victory. You are teaching the brain that maintaining discipline is what is worth being proud of, not the feeling of quick wins. Gradually, your self-respect is no longer tied to the money of one trade. It is tied to how you behave during the process. And this is where discipline becomes part of your character. You no longer try to look disciplined. You simply are someone who values process. You no longer ask yourself, should I break the rule this time? Because in your head, there is already a clear sentence. That is not how I trade. When that sentence appears naturally, without strain, without long internal arguments, you have come very far. You have stopped fighting your brain. You have retrained it. From a brain that only seeks quick rewards to a brain that begins to feel safe and proud in consistency. And that is how you trick the brain into liking trading discipline. Not with motivation, not with self-blame, not with grand promises, but with small, smart, repeated changes, until discipline is no longer effort, but how you exist in the market. By now you understand how to design the environment, create near rewards, increase friction for mistakes, build the identity of a disciplined trader. But there is one final crucial piece. You must stop seeing discipline as the thing that makes you money. Sounds backward, right? But if in your head you still think, discipline helps me win more, then every time you stay disciplined and still lose a trade, the brain will start doubting the system. And when the brain doubts, it returns to seeking fast dopamine, meaning random trades. Discipline does not exist to help you win each trade. Discipline exists to help you survive long enough. And survival is the real edge in trading. Undisciplined traders get kicked out of the game by the market. Disciplined traders stay long enough for probability to work in their favor. When you truly internalize this, a deep shift happens. You no longer see a losing day traded correctly as failure. You see it as a day you behaved in alignment with who you want to become. And each time like that, you reinforce the identity. I am a trader who follows process regardless of short-term results. That is the identity of a professional. A professional is not someone who wins constantly. A professional is someone who does the right thing even when emotions do not like it. And here is something very interesting. When you stop trading to make money immediately and start trading to become someone with a good process, money begins to appear as a side effect. Because you no longer destroy your edge. No more overtrading. No more revenge trading. No more fear of missing out jumping in at the end of a move. You only show up when there is an edge, and disappear when there is not. The market does not reward effort. It rewards people who only act when they have an edge. And to do that, you need discipline, not the straining type, but the kind designed into your default state. Like, you do not need effort to brush your teeth every morning. You just do it because that is who you are. One day you will sit in front of the screen, see the market moving strongly, see others showing profits, see opportunities that look attractive, but inside you are still calm. Not because you have no greed, but because you see too clearly the cost of acting at the wrong time. And you also see clearly the value of doing nothing. That is the sign you have changed at the nervous system level, not just knowledge. You no longer need motivation to be disciplined. You no longer need to remind yourself to try harder. You only need to keep maintaining the environment, system, and habits that were intelligently designed to support your best version. And if one day you slip, take an impulsive trade, break a rule, no self-insults, no quitting. You just return to the core question. What does my system need to adjust so this mistake is harder next time? That is the mindset of a system builder, not someone relying on willpower. Disciplined trading is not the journey of becoming perfect. It is the journey of becoming someone who sabotages themselves less each month. Slow, small, but cumulative. And when you look back after a year, you will not only see a different account, you will see a different you, calmer, slower, less dragged by emotions. And that is the biggest profit discipline brings. Money is just the side effect. And if we had to wrap this entire journey into one single truth, it is this. You do not become a disciplined trader by being stronger than your brain. You become a disciplined trader by designing the game so your brain no longer wants to sabotage you. Discipline is not a personality trait. Discipline is the result of the right environment, a clear system, friction placed in the right spots, rewards placed in the right spots, and a new identity built through small, repeated behaviors. You do not need to love discipline. You do not need motivation every day. You do not need to become a completely different person overnight. You only need to do one very humble but extremely powerful thing. Every day make the right behavior a little easier and the wrong behavior a little harder. Repeat long enough, your brain will stand on your side, and at some point you will realize you are no longer trying to be disciplined. You are simply someone who no longer finds breaking discipline reasonable. That is when you have truly tricked your brain. Not with pressure, but with understanding. Not with willpower, but with design. And from that point on, trading is no longer a battle between you and your emotions. It becomes a process you repeat calmly, structurally, and consistently. Discipline is no longer the goal, it is the foundation. And on that foundation, profit finally has a chance to exist.